Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 5 and we want to present our project journal called Security in E-commerce Transaction and Payment System. Before getting started, my name is Firzan Ananta and there is also my friend Ramadian Arditama. First, the internet as a global computer network can be used as a trading medium in the era of the globalization. Transactions that were initially carried out manually, the seller and the buyer are in one place. Now it's a changing. The buying and selling process can be done anywhere and anytime. By Reskiawan, 2008. E-commerce was introduced, which is a means for conducting financial transaction online. So, what is e-commerce? E-commerce is buying and selling of good or the service via internet and the transfer of money and data to complete the sales. It's also known as electronic commerce or internet commerce. Okay. Now this is the mechanism offer and demand of the online store. First, there is an offering. So this is the offer that do in the some e-commerce transaction, especially is a B2C, is a as a merchant or seller, so that the online store utilize the using website by providing a kind storefront. It contains a catalog of the product and also the service provided. And then there is the acceptance. So this is the online store in the e-commerce transaction through the website. Usually a visitor or the prospect buyer will choose certain list of the items on the online store. Okay, this is the payment methods in e-commerce. First, there is a ATM model transaction. Basically, this is the transaction is involve online store and the account holder who will make the payment from their account. Then there is a two-party payment without intermediary. So this is the transaction is done directly at the online store cashier. And then last is the payment by third party. Basically, the process of the payment is related to examples the card debit, credit, or check in this category. Okay, so there is a two several payment method. First is credit card payment system, and then the online check payment system. Okay, now my friend will continue the presentation. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ramadian Arditama from Group 5 for SCF, and today I will continue Firzan's presentation. And for first, I will explain about the security methods in e-commerce transaction with online stores. For the first, we can use SSL. So basically, SSL is a protocol that secure data transfer from buyer's browser to the online store web store. So it's secure the data from the buyer's browser with the owner of the online store is web browser. To do this, to do the secure, we need official institution that issue digital certificates such as Firzan and Tout. And the consumer on a transaction needs to make sure that the data are well encrypted. So that is for the first method. For the second method, we can use secure electronic transaction or SET. So SET use a digital certificate to prove that consumer and online store have the right to use and receive card. So this SET is used to prove that the consumer and online store have the right to use the card or receive card. If we pay with card, so the SET will prove that the consumer and the online store have the right to use the card. So SCT is an electronic machine that is used to verify the online store on screen and to check the consumer's autograph behind the Visa card. So that's what the SCT basically is. It used to check the online store and the consumer that they have the right to do payment with the card. So that is. And the third one is PGP, or pretty good news and pretty good privacy. So PGP is encryption software that used by the online store. PGP can be used to encrypt the customer email, and only who have the key that can open the email. So basically the PGP will create a public key and private key, and email that encrypted by the public key can be accessed by their own original private key, but the owner of the public key, like the online store, can share their public key, but and the buyer can use the public key to open the data, and then the owner of the public key, which is the online store, that only can access the data. So basically the public so the thing is that only their original private key can open the public key. And next, I will explain about the flowchart payment method. So in this flowchart, we use a cash on delivery payment method, which is on the journal they use a cash on delivery payment method. And then for the first, we start, and the buyer will choose the thing they want to buy, and then the buyer will input any object or anything that they want to buy, and the web will automatically calculate the total price, and the buyer needs to enter their address, and then the seller will do the delivery. They will send the object to the buyer, and if the seller already met the courier, the delivery, the buyer needs to pay the object before the delivery can give the object to the buyer. But if the buyer didn't pay the object, so the courier didn't need to give the object to the buyer. So basically this is not very effective, because maybe sometimes there is a buyer that don't want to pay the thing, but even if the buyer don't want to pay the thing, the owner or the owner of the online store have the data of the buyer. And this is the flowchart for real-time payment method. First we start, and then the buyer do the buying process and paying process using card, and then the web server of the company will continue the identity and the card number to the acquire payment gateway, and the acquire payment gateway will check the right of the card. So it will check if the card can be used. If it can be used, the data will be continued to the acquirer, and it will be continued to the issuer, and the issuer will give a number, the authorization number of the payment transaction, that will be sent to the acquirer. And after the acquirer have the authorization payment number, the acquirer can send the data to the seller, and the seller will give the number to the seller, and the seller will know that if the payment already success or not. If the payment is already success, so the seller need to deliver the object to the buyer. And the conclusion of this project is basically, in every payment in online transaction, we need security. We need security because it is very important. This is all about money. If the data get hijacked, so we will lose all the money. There are three basic security methods, like such as SSL, SET, and PGP. Besides the security about the payment, we also need a security about the identify and the identity of the customer. And this is the suggestion. If we are a big company, it will be suggested they build their own server, so it can only be accessed by the internal companies and it can only be used by the internal companies. So this is basically a lot more safer. And then the cryptography on the networks as not to harm any party. And then we need to implement the SSL, which is a protocol that creates a protective network between the cardholder's browser and the merchant server, so that the attackers cannot hijack the data. And that's all about my presentation. This is about our project. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.